And now like when you start into investing, like see, and for a beginner, and because when I started searching for reading books, watching YouTube channels,
Mhm.
there are a couple of things which I found is like very common. You find like when you start looking for resources, and these are like two sayings I would say. Like one is like start investing in yourself. This
Mhm.
is like very popular belief I found in like every book, every self-growth book. And the other is like make sacrifices early so you don't have to make sacrifices later in your life. And now I really want to talk about these two things. Like let's start with the first one. And I'm gonna talk about like both as a beginner perspective and as your perspective. So invest in yourself. What would you say, what are some of the best investments you can make in your early investment period?
Mhm. Yeah, I think if you're looking for sort of the highest ROI, I would
Mhm.
say it's hard if you have a side business that actually ends up doing fine. I would say that's where you can pretty much get the highest ROI. And I'm excluding, those things like, oh, I got on Bitcoin really early, and so I was able, or oh, I somehow knew Amazon was going to get big, and I bought it when they were just starting. So yeah, there's all these like kind of extreme cases that happen to a very small amount of people. But I would say for just everyday people like you and me, I would say, yeah, in terms of where can you get sort of the highest return, I would say your own business would be definitely be one, because there's no limit technically how much you can earn there, and it's fully within your control. So I would say that's definitely a good that's definitely a good one there. Yeah, and then other good investments, like obviously I'm very all in on ETFs, which is broad market index investing. There you're not going to get any sort of crazy home run 1,000+% returns, right? Like if you look at, okay, what can I expect if I go in on equities? The number I use for in my own financial models is 8%. And so, okay, if I can get 8% a year on average, long term, like that's kind of
Yes.
I would say my expectation. And so again, it's not sexy like the 1,000% or whatever. So I think those are good investments. And then investing in yourself and in learning as well is important for sure. Especially now, though, a lot of that education you can get for free. Just we have access to so much information, and so just be careful as well, I would say, because a lot of times if someone's trying to sell you some really expensive course and they're claiming all these things, that's the one of their lines they're probably going to use is, oh, well, you should invest in yourself. And yes, but it's not like, oh, if I buy this course, I'm now going to be wealthy, because it doesn't work that way. The reality is that it all takes a lot of work, like especially if you're doing your own business, for example, or if you want to be, at the top of your profession, keep getting promoted. All of that takes a lot of time and work. Like nothing is free. So just, I would say, yeah, investing in yourself is good, but don't fool yourself thinking, oh, if I buy this $1,000 course, that's going to guarantee me success, and I'm only going to have to work on it a few hours a week. That's not how it works. You're going to have to pump an incredible amount of time into that endeavor, and eventually you're going to probably see it yield some good results.
Definitely, definitely. And I have seen like when I was starting out, like in researching, I have seen like many courses like that, like give me your email ID and you buy this like a ebook or something, like so many courses. And in my long run, like in just 1 year, what I found, like most of the information is just online. You
Yeah,
can
it is.
talk with people. You can, if you're looking for like giving extra hour to research, you actually like can find that information.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we live in an incredible age, right? I mean, it used to
Yeah.
be that, okay, if you want this sort of extra level, you'd have to go to university. You'd have to, get all these, like it was so much harder. Right now, you could learn so much
So
online.
much.
It's unbelievable. Especially if in the entrepreneurial world and just looking at, okay, here's a business that I like. Here's you study kind of what they're doing, what's working for them, right? All of like a lot of the stuff you can get for free, and I think a lot of people get caught up in this thing where they just keep buying this course after course after course. And I was
Yeah.
guilty of this too when I was younger, where I would just learn and learn and learn and learn. And it's great, and learning's good, and you should always keep learning, but it's not a substitution for actually doing the work. And so you actually still have to actually go then and actually apply that. Like if you're just learning 100 things and you're applying one of them, that's not a really good use of your time, right? If there's
Yeah.
100 things you haven't tried yet, okay, maybe start applying some of these before you buy the next course, but I think the big thing to remember is that, a lot of it is still a lot of work, and you're not going to get these results overnight. But everybody wants things quickly overnight, and everybody wants to get rich quick and all that. But that's just not realistic, which is not a fun thing to hear. But like, mark my words, once after you get older and you start experiencing these things, you start noticing patterns where it's like, oh, yeah, they were right. That actually does take a lot of work, to pull these things off. So yeah, just be careful. But I mean, so much information you can get for free, like you said. Now it's unbelievable. Like, between the YouTube videos and the blog posts, and I mean, it's just fantastic. Like, I have a marketing background, and I mean, I can learn so much just by studying how other market companies are doing their marketing. And that doesn't cost me anything to do. I sign up to their email newsletter. I check out their site. I see how they're doing things, right? That's a huge education. And it's like current real life education, right? As opposed to like some theory in some book somewhere. And then you're like, okay, how does this apply to me, right? So anyways, that's my take.
No, definitely. And like I mentioned, like I also want to hear about yourself as well. Like, what do you think, like what type of personal investments you make in last decade, like in last 10 years, which like get yourself like where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, so investments in the last decade would have been, I had the real estate rental, which can work well if you buy it right and if you manage it well and you get good tenants. Real estate isn't always 100% win. So that's one thing to be careful of, because when you start reading those real estate books and you take the courses, it makes it sound like, oh, you can make money with real estate anywhere. But that's not really true, because the rental rate that happens in a certain local area and how much houses sell for in that area, it's a very, those two can be totally out of whack, where it's almost impossible to be able to buy a property, rent it out, and still have it pay for everything, because you paid so much for the property to begin with, right? And so that was a mistake that I made, where I read so many books, everything I could on the subject. And then in my actual local area, I was like, oh my goodness, this is almost impossible to find a house using these systems, just because the market's out of whack in terms of what rents are versus what houses sell for. And so you have to be careful, and you have to actually crunch the numbers, as opposed to like, oh, real estate is always great, just go with real estate. It's like, no, you actually have to do the math. Like, the math doesn't lie, right? So that's a big one. And then index investing, as we already talked about, obviously that's where I hold now. The overwhelming majority of our net worth is basically in index ETFs. So that's the other big one. And then other investments is like just the business, investing in it. Fortunately now, like if you have an online business, it doesn't take a lot of actual money to invest in your business. A lot of it is just time and learning how to do it, and producing the content, things like that. So I know those have been pretty much my best investments, is like your own entrepreneurial endeavors. Real estate has worked out well, although that's like, can be difficult and isn't for everyone. And I don't do real estate investing at all anymore, just because index investing is so much easier, and I love how passive it is. So, and then obviously, index investing, which is like what I'm known for, because that's all that I do pretty much. Yeah.
Definitely. Like I have the friend like coming on the show, like he was like a real estate agent. And he mentioned, like, especially like in the area of GTA, like it's very hard to get positive cash flow.
Yeah.
The majority of your money is going to be like appreciation, not like the getting rents from your tenants. Like,
yeah,
that.
Because when you read those books or take those courses, right? They're like, oh yeah, you're gonna get X positive cash flow every month, all that, and then you put that in a spreadsheet, and then you analyze the properties in your own area, and you're like, how the heck do I do this? I would have to buy this house for like 100,000 under what they're asking to make the numbers work. This is like you can't. I mean, good luck doing that, right? Especially now when people are overbid, are going into bidding wars and stuff, right? So good luck. But then on the flip side, I have talked, like, for example, I had one of the guests I had on my show. He lives in some smaller town in the US, and there the numbers actually do work. So the rents just are pretty high, and the real estate prices are actually pretty low. And so in his case, like he knows in his actual local market, it's a lot easier to make the numbers work. Like you can cash flow. There's people that own, many different properties, because for whatever reason, it's just a lot more expensive to rent and it's a lot cheaper to buy. Maybe a lot of people can't buy, because they just don't have the money or whatever the case is. And so they're forced to rent. And so people that do have money are able to buy multiple properties. So it really, really depends on the local area. And like you said, with GTA, Yeah, like good luck buying a single family home and getting it to cash flow, like in Brampton, right? I mean, I wish you luck. Like I tried the same thing in Kitchener-Waterloo, and it was nuts. It was like, okay, and I talked to other real estate investors, like, hey, I'm looking to buy a single family home, rent it out, that kind of thing, and they're like, like that's all the people that were actually doing it aren't doing that, are not buying those kinds of properties because it's nearly impossible to get them to cash flow. So what they would do is they would do like rent to own. There was somewhat structured rent to own deals, which are obviously a lot more now complicated. Others would do like student housing, which was working for them.
Yeah.
But then the problem with that, and I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, was that with student housing, okay, awesome if you can get it to work, but that's a lot more active now because you're going to have a lot higher turnover, and you're no longer like getting your feet wet with a small inexpensive house, right? If you're going into student rentals, people want to get into that, right? So the land value in those areas are a lot more. So you're not getting in with a couple $100,000. You're basically like, you're doing like $1 million plus pretty much, right? So it's like, okay, you want to buy your first rental property and your first rental property is going to be $1 million plus. Me personally, when I ran into that, I was like, I don't feel comfortable, right? Like that's a pretty, like getting your feet wet with $1 million. I'm a little too risk averse for that. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm out. I'm not, you guys have fun. I hope you make money, but I'm like, you know what I mean? I just want to try things small before I try to make them bigger. I don't want to just bet everything on this and hopefully it works. And if it doesn't, you're pretty much bankrupt, right? So anyways, big tangent, but yeah, good to mention to people.
Totally got it. Like when you mention like student properties, like especially like you can't find like cheap, like kind of cheap homes in Brampton. Like there's so much
Yeah.
flow coming in.
Yeah.
And
Oh, exactly. Yeah.